Hi there, my name is Libby Braun. I'm a student at the University of Rochester. I'm a senior this year, so class of 2025. I study digital media studies. I'm getting a minor in computer science, and I'm also pursuing the user experience certificate we have here. I work for Studio X as the learning experience designer, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what XR is. So this is an intro to XR session. So first of all, you might be asking yourself, what is this term XR? And we'll get into that. But overall, it's just an umbrella term for all of the following terms that we'll go into, okay? So there is AR, which stands for augmented reality, and that is when AR or is digital content overlaid in the real world. So we have Pokemon Go here, where there is Squirtle and he's being overlaid into what I'm seeing through my phone in the real world. This other app here, AR Anatomy, is used by the Med Center at the University of Rochester to train their students. And it uses AR to overlay this digital content onto the physical dummy. There is also virtual reality, or VR. It is typically experienced with a headset. So the users can visit virtual worlds, make art, and meet up with their friends as avatars, for example. You can experience multiple worlds or things. So you can use it for gaming, exercise, travel, education, and business. So for pre-college, we have some examples of games that are VR, like Beat Saber, Job Simulator, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, and then in the top right there is First Steps, where you're dancing with the robot, and it's pretty fun. Additionally, there is MR, which is mixed reality, and that is kind of the combination of both AR and VR, okay? So MR is a hybrid of the two, where the physical and digital can coexist and interact in real time. So this technology is being used heavily in healthcare for things like surgical training, displaying patient records, and seeing internal processes of the human body. Main difference between AR and MR is that you can physically interact with the virtual objects. So the Apple Vision Pro, that is also an MR headset, and in this photo, they're using something related to the HoloLens 2, which is another MR headset. To get into a little bit of the history of XR, or extended reality as it is today, I think it's important to go over that. So we can kind of start off with this idea of being in a different world with these cycloramas. They're large-scale panoramic images that were installed inside a cylindrical platform, and they were immensely popular in the 19th century, and the most popular ones would travel from city to city. So people would go inside these buildings and be immersed. And that was kind of, the idea of what XR does today, where you're immersed in a different reality. You can see the sort of same idea like with the Van Gogh exhibit that's been going around. It's with moving images rather than a painted picture compared to the cyclorama, but these are still large-scale installations that have music, and it's very immersive. Then there is the stereoscope. Moving into the 1830s, Sir Charles Wheatstone, the English physicist, invented the stereoscope, which combines two images with slightly different depths into one 3D image. These were immensely popular during the Victorian period, and here at the George Eastman Museum, I believe you can actually try some of these out. They actually have some old ones there. Moving into the 1950s, there's the Sensorama. So a cinematographer created the Sensorama as an arcade-style theater cabinet that would stimulate all the senses. It had stereoscope speakers, a stereoscopic 3D display, fans, smell generators, and even a vibrating chair. The device was ahead of its time, but arguably it could have laid the foundation for amusement park rides that we see today, such as the Resistance ride at Disney. Then in the 1960s, there was the Sword of Damocles, I think. In 1968, it was created as the first headset that interfaced with the computer. So it hung from the ceiling and was very large and bulky. you can't really go anywhere with it and you're not mobile. But it's named after an ancient tale that has an illusion of power and looming danger. So this was a very new, innovative technology at the time. Then in 1987, Jared Lanners coined the term virtual reality. And his company was the very first company to sell a VR headset. If you look up a lot of, do more research about VR, you'll see this man come up a lot. He's pretty big in this world. So in the 1990s, Nintendo had their Virtual Boy, and VR gaming actually made some progress in the mainstream. But they didn't really take off because the technology couldn't really offer players an optimal experience. It just wasn't as easy or as immersive as the technology is today. Or with the Oculus from 2010, Palmer Luckey at the age of 18 created the prototype for the Oculus Rift headset. And by 2014, Facebook had acquired the Oculus VR company for $2 billion. And in 2021, they rebranded their entire company to Meta and the headset to the MetaQuest. So some of you might be familiar with Oculus, and Oculus was just rebranded to Meta. So now all of the headsets, we call them like MetaQuest 2 or MetaQuest 3. Oculus was bought by Facebook, which is now Meta. So continuing on into 2016, going back to Pokemon Go, this was the first time that AR was really brought into the mainstream media, and now it's kind of a household term and concept thanks to this application. And going on to the future and today, it's really the whole market has expanded a lot. So in 2021, Meta sold 8.7 million units of their MetaQuest 2 headset. And this whole term of the metaverse has been created, and now AI is becoming a really big thing. So we're going to see how that's also integrated into this technology. So there's a lot in the future to look forward to. It's only getting better, the technology, and how we understand how we're being immersed and so on. So now you might be thinking, all right, I understand kind of what we're talking about here. I understand some of the background. How do I create my own content? And we do that in 3 different stages. So first, that is content creation. Then you choose your game engine to create the interactions, and then you can actually publish and deploy that game. So starting off with content creation, you can do 3D modeling, as we have some images here, where you're working with primitive objects and you manipulate the geometry of those objects. And you can also add on materials and textures to really bring those models to life. And this is just starting out making the content or the assets of your game. So during the 3D modeling process or the content creation process, you could be building environment aspects or your characters or etc. So say you wouldn't want to go that route, you can also, and you have access to this, you can use a 3D scanner. So say you have this really cute little cow figurine and you want that to be in your game and you have access to one of these scanners, it can actually scan it for you. It's 3D scanners emit lasers that take in data to create point clouds, so which is basically a set of data points in space with a specific software. Moving on, something a little bit more complicated than how you might want to make your models is with the technique called photogrammetry. And it's a use of photography in surveying and mapping to measure distances between objects, and art and science of extracting 3D info from 2D objects and it's more affordable than using scanners that Google Street or Google Earth uses. So AKA, let's take my example on my slides. There was this foil that we were using for a project. I put it on a table, and then all of these blue dots are actually photos I took of the objects. You can see in the bottom half of the photo all the individual photos I had taken of this foil. And the software, we use Agisoft, it actually is able to create that point cloud and make a 3D model out of that. So on the right, we actually took the foil, and there it is. And that's just using the images that I took on, your iPhone, or an iPad would also work. So let's say you got all the things you want in your environment, all the things you want as your assets. Now it's time to choose a gaming engine. So you can either use Unity or Unreal to add physics, interactions, and animation. So we at Studio X use Unity, but there's also Unreal Engine. It kind of depends on preference and what you might already have or not have skills with. So once you add the interactions on Unity or whatever your gaming engine, add physics, you're really happy with your game. Now you want to get it out there. So you can deploy it with the Quest VR store or even the Apple store. Just like with Pokemon Go, it's posted on the App Store. Some of our programs we just house on our headsets itself. We don't even deploy it. But if you want to get it out in the public, these would be your two options. Okay, so I mentioned the metaverse a little bit earlier, and we're just going to touch on this briefly, but the metaverse is basically a version of the internet that we're inside, supposedly. So you experience it as an avatar, a virtual version of yourself. You can have meetings, play games, go shopping, attend concerts, hang out. People even spend a lot of money buying things in these games, which is interesting. It's a whole other conversation. But it doesn't have to be just VR. It can also be cross-platform. So the Digital Second Life was kind of this game that was popular. And now with VR, you can kind of live and embody that digital second life with a headset. So there are lots of issues, as you might expect with this. Unregulated spaces, a lot of it being, just run with kids, with parents who are not supervising them. So that can lead to bullying and harassment, other cyber crimes. Like I mentioned earlier, people buy stuff in these worlds and they can get stolen, just like they can get stolen in the real world. So again, that digital property and accountability, because who is moderating these spaces? And, it gets pretty tricky. If people are doing things that you don't want them to do, how are you going to control that if you're just an avatar? It's a much bigger conversation, yeah. So there are other critical issues, too, that we have to think about as we're developing for this technology. So first, the hardware collects a wide range of user data. Actually, I'm going to go to the next slide just so you can see all the different user data that is taken by Meta. It's not clear how that data is being used, stored, or shared. The Quest headsets collect physical features and measurements, including voice, hand, and body data. It also tracks your interactions, your browser history, app usage, and even your environment. So researchers recently did a study, and they found that VR users could be identified with only 5 minutes of motion data. And this could mean serious implications for the future, depending on how this information is used. So if Meta has, access linked, your VR account is linked to your Facebook account, they basically, they know a lot about you at that point. So that is a big issue. Empathy is also something that is a very big topic with VR. You'll often hear that you can use VR to step into another person's shoes. But can you really understand complex topics related to identity by trying a VR experience for 15 minutes? It's almost identity tourism at that point. And we have another workshop on this whole topic as well. There's also issues with inclusion, safety, of course, motion sickness, and also accessibility. So there aren't a lot of good options for people with accessibility issues like low vision or blind users, and it's not always possible to customize or switch inputs for apps that require controllers. Many apps do allow you to adjust the font size and colors and turn on and off captions, but accessibility with an emerging technology is really important to keep in mind as we're developing for it. And these are just some of the issues we're considering here at Studio X. So going back to here at Studio X, we have over 50 researchers across 20 departments at the University of Rochester that use this technology. So to either enhance their teaching and learning, to recreate historical sites, to improve the VR optics, or even 3D sound. So research was done to investigate the needs surrounding XR at the university, and what came from this is Studio X. So what is Studio X? We're the hub for extended reality at the University of Rochester. Studio X fosters a community of cross-disciplinary collaboration, exploration, and peer-to-peer learning that lowers barriers to entry, inspires experimentation, drives innovative research, and teaching in immersive technologies. So, in short, we provide access. What types of access, you might be asking? Well, we have a space. So we provide different types of spaces to facilitate XR work, from group study rooms to high-end workstations, or just being a fun place in the libraries that people can come hang out and explore ideas. So the technology we have here, we have over 40 different headsets, most of them MetaQuest. We have an Apple Vision Pro, a couple of them. We have a couple HoloLens. In addition to that, we have 3D scanners, 360 cameras, audio devices, and more. And this is all can be used by students, and much of this equipment can be reserved and taken out of the library, even for community members. So we teach workshops on XR tools and provide consultations as well. Our workshops are often fun and engaging, such as our VR Flappy Bird workshop, in which a user becomes the bird and creates their own VR obstacle course. Anyone can attend, and you don't need to have prior experience with the technology in order to get something out of our workshops. So at Studio X, we offer students valuable work experience and leadership opportunities. Our student employees develop XR applications and gain skills in 3D modeling, coding, user experience design, project management, collaboration, and communication. It goes on. For instance, we are currently working on Aurum VR. That is an alchemy laboratory project that's in collaboration with the Robbins Medieval Library. And this program was inspired by a real manuscript from the Robbins collection. So our students are working to create that alchemical lab that you can play in based off this real manuscript. Additionally, our students contribute to faculty research projects with real-world impact. Last spring, one of our undergraduate fellows developed an immersive experience that interfaced with lab equipment at the University Medical Center Motion Labs to assist patients with shoulder injuries. Studio X is also very student-driven. So we teach workshops, we provide consultations, conduct research, and are really a central role in this community, which as a student myself, I am very proud about. This community. Most importantly, we provide access where we're able to talk and see what people are doing in this field. So we're based in the library, so everyone can come, meet here, use our resources, and get excited about XR. So despite being a little techy, we also play lots of Uno to try and keep it light. All right. Getting into pre-college, you might be wondering yourself, what is this project all about? So you're going to be creating an experience or a game with the narrative and environment and interactables all decided by you. So you'll create a 3D modeled NPC in Blender. You will build a world in Unity. The player will engage with the NPC in some way. The player will collect win objects in your VR world, and the player will stow the win objects in a win container. So this is the type of game we're creating here, and it's really important that we have a solid understanding so that the rest of your work goes smoothly with the rest of our instruction. And feel free, if you ever want to go above and beyond, of course, you're more than welcome. So there is an example project called Jellyfishing that you can take a look at, and this was created by our programmer. You'll be creating the character and environment. So the jellyfish is the win object or the game object. The crate is the win container that you stow these jellyfish or win objects in. And then there are sharks that swim around, and they're the NPCs, and those are to be avoided. So the player character is us, the user, the player, catching the jellyfish. So that is basically taking this scope and just putting it into context. And we have a video of someone demoing this game as well, so be sure to check that out to make sure you're fully understand what we're doing. Thank you so much. We're really excited for you getting involved in this program, and I hope everything goes smoothly. Thanks so much.